The Pittsburgh Steelers are in the perfect position heading into day 2 of the NFL draft. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we all know, in the very first round, pick number 20, they selected Fatanu, offense tackle, right tackle. But now, heading into day 2, it leaves them in the perfect position based on how the draft board has fallen. But before we get more to this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers draft coverage and all news in general. Also, like the video. Let's get right back into it. So, who would have thought that the board would have fell this nicely in the Pittsburgh Steelers' favor? When you look at where they picked in round 1, pick number 20, they had every option available on the board. They had the top cornerback available with no cornerbacks getting taken until pick number 22, so they had an option to choose cornerback. No, they did not pick it. They also had the option to choose every single inside offensive lineman center available because none got taken until later in the draft as well. No, they did not select it. That means that they selected offensive tackle and fulfilled that position and that need on their team. So they no longer need a right tackle. But also, when you're looking at the board, it fell so nicely to them and in their advantage because no defensive players got taken until pick number 15. And that led everyone to fall down a spot. And a lot of guys who you thought maybe would have got taken in round 1 did not get taken. And this happens every year. There's always people like, would Jackson Powers Johnson be available at pick number 20? Many people thought, no, he wouldn't. Maybe he would get selected before. But he did not even get selected in the first round. So there's a lot of people who fall who many people don't think is going to fall, and they're shocked when it happens. And once again, that's what happened this season in the draft. You're looking at the interest the Steelers showed in players like Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa, someone who the Steelers met with in a pre-draft visit, top 30. He still did not get selected in the very first round. So if the Pittsburgh Steelers want, they could trade up in the second round and select him. Or they could trade up in the second round to select a wide receiver, like a Donnie Mitchell. They could select Jackson Powers Johnson, maybe trade up. Or maybe they won't even have to trade up. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers would be in a perfect position because there's so many talented guys still left in the draft and they all fell, that maybe when the Pittsburgh Steelers pick at 51, there's going to be many options available. For example, the Pittsburgh Steelers, when you look at their needs now, they fulfilled right tackle. That means they no longer need an offense tackle. Now they need a wide receiver, inside line, which is a center, and a cornerback. Those are their top needs. And like I said, all the centers fell. Barton, yes, Graham Barton of Duke, he got taken at 26. But now, just like Creed Humphrey years ago, no one thought that he would have been available to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the second round. Yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers passed on him, but now you could look at the centers and just say Jackson Powers Johnson. He gets selected in the second round. Probably will. But now that leaves Zach Frazier still available to the Steelers, hopefully for their next selection. Or to say he's not taken. There's still other cornerbacks who got fallen in this draft, like Kool-Aid McKinstry. Who would have thought he would have still been there? So there's other players as well, like Cooper DeJean. He'll probably get taken early in the draft, but not everyone could get selected. Players that Pittsburgh Steelers showed interest, someone's going to be there with their second round pick. And that's going to be a good case scenario for the Steelers, and that's why they're in the perfect position. Because they don't really need to pick one player, one position. They don't have to reach on a position. They could fulfill the wide receiver spot. They could fulfill the cornerback spot. They could fulfill an inside line center spot. If someone falls, they're in position to select them, and someone will fall. And just looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they visited in the pre-draft process, in their 30 spots that they're allowed to fulfill, they're allowed to have 30 players in which they meet, bring into the facility, meet with the coaches, meet with the owners, see the building, see the field, and things of that. The players that they met with, look at the wide receiver position first. Players like Malachi Corley, A.D. Mitchell, Luke McCaffrey, Tajee Washington, Xavier Legette, all those guys are still available in the second round. So obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers brought them in for a reason, and they have a comfort level with them. They wanted to see them and have them close in-person meeting so they feel some type of comfort, and they're all there in round 2. Meaning when the Steelers are on the clock, maybe one of those guys gets selected. Looking at the cornerback spot, the people who they brought in. Everyone except for Nate Wiggins is still there. They met with Max Melton, they met with Daquan Hardy, they met with Arju Phillips, and they met with some other guys. All of them are still available in the second round. So someone's going to have to fall. Looking at the inside linemen, the Pittsburgh Steelers, other than Graham Barton, who got selected at pick number 26, all the centers that they met with are still available. So they met with these guys. They brought them in for a reason. They met them at their pro day. Some of them went to dinner with. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have a comfort level. And they're in the perfect position because all these guys fell. Barely anyone who the Pittsburgh Steelers met with in the pre-draft visit process is gone. And we all know how the Steelers do business. Looking at last year's draft, everyone who Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin and the Steelers brought in on the 30 pre-man visit process, every single round 1, round 2, both the selections in round 2, round 3, all the guys they drafted met with the Steelers in that process. And most of the guys the Steelers have remaining on the board met with the Steelers. So they're in a really good position heading into round 2 with many needs still to fill on the roster, and they could really go best player available here. And the thing is though, if you go and look at every team that picks before the Steelers, before pick number 51, every team that's ahead of them, the only team that needs a center is the Cardinals. Other than the Cardinals, there's no team that needs a center. And there's no team that more than likely would select a center. Maybe they would reach on them and maybe move them to guard, but there's no team that's in dire need of a center. So a center may fall. That's why when I mocked Zach Frazier to the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick number 51, many people said that he wouldn't fall. But look at the board. Many people fell who we did not expect. And also, when you look at the cornerback spot for the Steelers, there's a few teams who do need a cornerback, but it's not their top needs. When you look at the Falcons, that's one of their top needs. But other than them, yes, teams need a cornerback, but it's not one of their top needs. You know how the Pittsburgh Steelers, their rankings of top needs are like in order from like offensive lineman, offensive tackle, center, wide receiver, cornerback. So that's how they kind of list it and you kind of rank it. When you rank the other team's needs, no, they don't really need a center, and no, they don't really need a cornerback. They need a guard. You're looking at the options before the Steelers, they need wide receiver, they need a quarterback some teams need defensive linemen, but there's no team in dire need of a cornerback and in dire need of a center. That's why the Steelers are in good position, because that means other positions will start to get filled, and sometimes teams, they don't really go based off of best player available. If you have a really big need on your team, you're going to pick that position, because if you don't pick that position, guys are going to be gone from your next selection, and you won't be able to fill that hole on their roster. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, I keep saying this, but they're in a really great spot heading into today's draft, round 2 and round 3. With many players still left on the board that we did not think were still going to be there. When people like this fall, like Cooper DeJean, when people like Kool-Aid McKinstry fall, Jackson Powers-Johnson fall, and Donnie Mitchell, when all these players fall out of the first round, that moves everyone else down a spot. That means that they won't get drafted in the spot that maybe you would project them to get drafted in. When people reach on picks, people fall. And that's why the Steelers, this has worked out in their favor. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the Pittsburgh Steelers draft so far. Do you like the pick that they picked in round 1, pick number 20, in Kenny Pickett? Do you not like the selection? And how do you feel about them heading into day 2? Do you like the position that they're in? Do you think they should trade up? Do you think they should trade down? Or do you believe they should stay still and pick at their spot? Also, what position would you pick? Or are you going like how I'm saying, and people are going to fall, and you just have to be ready to pick the person who falls? Also, do you believe that they're in a good position like I'm saying? Also, I'm going to be covering the entire NFL draft process, making videos on each player, giving you their strength, their weaknesses, and how they'll fit into this team. And I already made a video on Fatanu, so go ahead and check it out. It's on the channel. I covered every player in free agency that we got. I'll continue to do so throughout the draft. This is the best spot to receive Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and also like the video. The next video I'll make is when the Steelers are on the clock. So, Until then, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.